Many church officials use their offices to advance their careers, as we just discussed in the last video. These careers were really, there really wasn't any way to say this except for advancement of their careers meant that they got more say and power in everything that's going on in Europe at that point. So local priests, they weren't really concerned with their people and even how they would get accepted as achieving salvation and so on and so forth, getting accepted into heaven. What you got into the church for, or what at that point, many people, not everybody, but a lot of people that got into church affairs and being part of the church did so because they would be guaranteed a spot at the top of the estate system. And so being part of the church meant that you were part of the top or the first estate. And with that being said, that meant that you had a lot of power, you had a lot of say in things, you also had a lot of money. And because they really weren't in it for the right reasons, they did things that they shouldn't have been doing. A lot of times that you would find priests who had sworn celibacy, which means that they would never marry, they would never make a baby. They would have babies. They would have a mistress on the side, and this was like a rampant thing throughout the church. And so, with that being said, salvation became very mechanical. So they would basically have people come in, they'd sprinkle them with some water, they'd say, "Do you believe in Jesus?" and so on and so forth, and okay, you're saved. And from there, these people would venerate saints to gain an indulgence, which meant that they could essentially not have to go to hell because they paid for a saint to have the betterment, a better church or something like that would help further their saints' works here on earth. If you look over on the right hand side of the screen at the top, that's a skull of a saint, and that's like a relic. So basically, they would go and they would collect these relics, and they believed that they had power, and that power would, by being in close proximity to them, basically just suck them to heaven or whatever. Venerating a saint, meaning that they would pay for them to have a better church or to expand their building or have paintings painted on the walls or whatever, could gain them an indulgence or basically a release from all or part of the punishment of sin. Which, I mean, if you can read at all and you've read the Bible, there's nowhere in the Bible that it says that you should collect relics or do anything about indulgences. But there's no such thing as indulgences. As a matter of fact, if you really get down to brass tacks, Jesus actually said, if you would wish to go to heaven, sell all of your belongings, take up your cross, and follow me. He said that to a rich man who could have bought indulgences if he had lived in the medieval times or later, in the Renaissance and Reformation. So, it's just, in all seriousness, it's just not accurate at all. And with it not being accurate, people saw the need for this. This was just wrong because people could read. More people could read at this point. There might not have been a whole lot of people could read, but more people could read. And we're figuring out that the church they'd kind of pulled the wool over everybody's eyes.